Now, if you're a fan of fast-paced miniature games like myself, I think it's a game that you need to check out, and this is Super Fantasy Brawl. The game came out 1 year ago with a successful Kickstarter, and actually now they're planning to run the Super Fantasy Brawl Round 2, which is the second installment that we can't wait to see what they're planning for the game. If you haven't heard of Super Fantasy Brawl before, this is a very fast, fun, with simple rules miniature war game for 2 players. So essentially it's pitting one team of 3 champions versus another player's team of 3 champions again. There's a lot of choices, so you can select from a very a rich amount of different heroes with different abilities, decks and play styles. And in any case you can do it in a competitive or casual draft, so when you select your team they don't have to belong to a specific faction, so that gives you freely the opportunity to mix and combine everything. But what is more important and more interesting in this game, in my opinion, is the way that the game unfolds. The gameplay is very simple. It's a number of rules. I'm going to be very detailed and scholastic to give you all the details so that you can play directly from this video Super Fantasy Brawl with no extra need for the rulebook. But keep in mind that in the core this game is extremely simple. Simple does not mean not interesting. In my book it's the other way around. Usually the simple systems are the ones that with the correct framework give you a tremendous experience. I don't want that my game is bogged down with too many details, too many unnecessary modifications, rules, plus or minus and things to remember, line of sight and whatever. I want sometimes a fast, super fun but yet meaningful opposition on a war game, on a miniature clash game between me and an opponent, and I think this game really delivers that. The reason that I'm very I would say happy with the product that I got on Kickstarter last year, and I want to support it by giving this video and sharing my love with the game with the rest of the fellow board gamers, is that I believe that this game has a very unique and robust system. I was thinking that it's a game that you can, I wish I could take it everywhere with me so that I can quickly set it up and play against another player, and maybe I suppose that there are tournaments and a lot of activity, but I haven't followed up that online. But the reason I haven't done so far is that I didn't have the means to travel to pick up with me this huge box, because it's a tremendous, lush and very rich production, and you know, it's what you expect from Mythic Games. But what I really enjoyed lastly is having this specific bag that fits everything in itself. It contains everything, and you can travel take with you carefully with safety your miniatures, because it's included in an insert of I think it's Felder, if I'm not mistaken, with slots for your minis, with location and area to fit your board, your cards, your plastic upgrades or whatever, and all fits in a nice bag that you can put it on your shoulder and take it with you. That means that immediately this is a game that I'm going to be taking with me in many occasions to have a fun, fast versus and show it to as many people as possible, because I really enjoyed the game. Now, there are many games out there that actually have a similar feel, or a similar, I would say, try to deliver a similar experience, but I think this game excels more in the way that it does it in a very clean, robust and straightforward system. So you know what to expect. You know that you can use the combination of the cards from your hand to your advantage. I like the fact that you can only do as much as on your turn, because you only have 3 cores of magic to flip and activate either a card from a specific champion or do a standard action, and then it's your opponent's turn, and then it's your turn. But on top of that, we have seen this also before, okay? You play cards and you activate champions and they do damage or position themselves on the board, etc. Where this game excels, in my opinion, is the victory conditions. In order to win, you just need to get 5 victory points. You gain 1 victory point each time you knock out one of your opponents, and they come back on the next round, so there's no champion mini elimination. That's cool. I don't want to have reduced power on the board on the next round. And the second source of victory points, and it's the most interesting, are the challenge cards, which actually dictate that you can gain some of your victory points by cleverly positioning, controlling, or fulfilling some of the conditions on the card. And this is open information, so you know exactly that the same thing is exactly what your opponent may be pursuing as well. and there is always a chance to try to stop your opponent from doing what it's coming down the road, because you see the cards itself. The cards move in a queue, in a card queue, so that's not only one thing that you're trying to fulfill. There are various cards that worth different amount of victory points, and they move in a queue, and if you don't do them, I think 5 steps or something like that, I think it's 5, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in the 5th one they go out, and there is a step before that so that you can see it without scoring it. So you can try to catch your opponent from preventing them from doing what you also try to do to fulfill those cards. I'm a bit enthusiastic about the game. I played it many times so far, and I think now they have it also on Board Game Arena as a beta, so people can also try it, and that's the best way to try for yourself and see if a game is good for you. But I think this game for me delivers both on the gameplay, on the robustness of the clean system. It's an extremely well done system, simple, neat, yet effective and highly enjoyable, the way that this style of games should be, in my opinion. And also it has an amazing production and replayability and replay value, because you can combine different champions, make different type of groups and teams before you try to face your opponent. You can also do the 2 versus 2, the team tornado, I think it's called Super Tornado something variant, which should also be interesting, because each side has 2+2 from one team and 2+2 from the other team, in a total of 8 heroes on the board. And the most important thing that I want to leave you with before explaining the rules is that in this game you can try to organize and position yourself better, anticipating your opponent's move. But I think that the only luck that there is left in the game is the draw of the cards. But since they can be combined with different type of manipulation of the cores, or using them for different things in the game, that gives a lot of versatility and flexibility, and it's a system that really works. So there you have it. I've been speaking a lot, but let me show you in practice how Super Fantasy Brawl works. I will explain the rules as if you know nothing, so you can rely completely on this video, and I'll come back at the end of this video for a final wrap-up and my final opinion about the game, which already you know most of it, because I loved it so far. Became the premium form of entertainment overnight. Wizards scrambled to assemble teams of champions from across history, pitting them against other teams for fame, honor and glory. It was the popularity of brawls that grew with every match, until the largest tournament in the history of brawls was announced, the Super Brawl. Today, thousands of brawls are fought over dozens of leagues across Fabulosa, with the best teams earning their spot in the annual Super Brawl. The world watches with eager anticipation as the greatest wizards and the heroic champions gather ready to fight for bragging rights on the greatest stage of them all. This is Super Fantasy Brawl. Super Fantasy Brawl is a fun, fast-paced competitive miniatures board game where players select a team of 3 champions and combine them with their unique action cards to create a synergistic action deck. The game is faction-free, that means players have their choice of combinations of champions that they wish to employ, and each turn the players use their hand of action cards to maneuver, attack, displace enemies and claim objectives to score victory points. The aim of the game is very simple. Essentially, for winning the game, you need to be the first player to reach 5 victory points, and then immediately you win the game. Players will choose how to select their 3 champions for their team in order to start brawling, so you can have either the casual draft or the competitive draft. Both draft options are very interesting, and the casual draft is faster. Essentially, you form a common pool of unique champions with a minimum of 6, and then the second player will draft a first champion, then the first player will draft his first champion, the second player will draft a second, then the first player will draft their second champion, and then the second player will draft their third and final champion. So what happens then? Every side will have 3 champions on their team, and the first player will be able, after selecting the third and final champion, to start the game. Essentially, each team will have 3 champions, and any remaining champions will be returned to the box. There is though the competitive draft, where there is a bit of a different setup. I'm not going to go through the details, you can find it on the rulebook on page 7, but that offers a more strategic, selective draft that prohibits your opponent from selecting specific champions with those that they come down on a tournament or on the battlefield. So let's move back to the components and how we set up the game to start Super Fantasy Brawl. Setup is very fast. First of all, we randomize which player goes first. That player chooses a deployment area and places a first player token next to their gate. This is a first player token. This is for the orange team, and this side is for the purple team. And after randomizing who goes first, we place the starting player token next to their gate. Next, players decide if they wish to freely choose their 3 favorite champions to play with or draft using either the casual or the competitive draft rules that we explained before. Afterwards, each player takes the 3 action decks for their champions and shuffles them together to form one unique draw deck. As you can see, each of those champions comes with 1 champion card, which we will come back later and explain it, and the respective 6 action decks for that hero specifically. So you will do the same for each of your 3 champions. Pick the champion card, place it on your champion board for a reminder, and then use the 6 action cards together with the second 6 and the third set of 6 action cards from all your champions. Put them together, shuffle them thoroughly, and create a deck with all your action cards collected. The same goes for both players. Next, we shuffle the challenge cards, which is this deck over here. This is a very common source of victory points in the game, and we have to be very careful on the conditions listed there. We shuffle that deck, and of course we draw a first challenge card and place it on the leftmost space over here. Underneath, there are no victory points awarded for this one, because this is going to move at each round together with nuance supplying the line. At any given time, we'll see when we score those victory points depending on the condition, but keep in mind they may vary on victory points they award depending on their slot that they have moved into. In any case, we start with just the draw deck and one which has no possibility of being scored to begin with. We'll come back to this. In this game, the trophy, either the plastic one, which is a nice cool upgrade, or the trophy icon, depicts 1 victory point. Then what we do is we place the victory and damage tokens next to the board to form supplies, either the victory points or the damage tokens. Careful, the damage tokens depict 1 damage from one side and 3 damage symbols from the other, so you have to be very careful on which side you are using to depict the correct amount of damage taken for each of your champions. And at any time we'll come back to the anatomy of the card, but there is only a specific amount of damage each of your champions can take, as seen on the top right corner. Then we place all the traps face down. These are the traps. They have this symbol and they have different outcomes once revealed. When we start the game, we shuffle all these trap tokens on the board, and the first player places face down on 2 trap hexes of their choice, 2 of those. So if this is the first player, they will start and place, for example, here and here. This is a slot icon for where you are allowed to place traps. As you can see, there are 3 from this side and 3 from that side. So we only have 4 given trap tokens at any time in the session. So the first player will place 2 of those on their choice hex without looking at them, so you can only reveal them when a champion walks into that trap hex. And then the second player places traps face down on 2 more trap hexes of their choice, again without looking at them. There should be a total of 4 traps and 2 empty trap hexes on the board. The first player draws a hand of 5 cards from their common action deck that they have prepared with the respective cards from their 3 heroes participating in their team. And they may discard any number of those cards and draw a new card for each card that they discard. All the discard cards go back into the draw deck. Then the second player does exactly the same, so that he or she can also have 5 cards in their hand. Actually, this is the cards that we'll be having from round to round, 5 cards each time. And last, the first player places their champion on unoccupied hexes in their deployment area. The deployment hexes have these gray symbols, so they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from one side, and respectively 5 from the opponent's side. So the first player is going to place their champion miniatures onto the hexes they want, respecting that they are on deployment area symbols, and then the second player will place their champions onto the deployment area respectively across the board. So once again, winning the game is all about getting 5 victory points immediately, and then you're the winner. The basic concept of the game, the basic concepts of the game are a few, simple, yet lay out the framework for a very robust game. The basic rule is that if at any point a card directly conflicts with one or more rules in the rulebook set, then of course the card takes precedence. Enemies and allies, in any case, because we're going to see some cards referring, action cards that is, referring to either the keyword enemies or allies. Miniatures represent great warriors from Fabulosa's turbulent history, and they are referred as champions, so collectively the game starts with 3 + 3, 6 champions on the game board. You have the champions that are under control of your opponent, and these are referred to as enemies, and your own champions are called allies. So when a champion card effect refers to allies or ally, it does not include the champion to whom the card it belongs. It has to be, for example, if I play an action card from this champion and it refers to a boost that one of my allies can receive, or a specific ally, it can either be this one or that one, so it cannot be applied on the champion, him or herself. The next thing is the objective of the game. Of course, we need to collect victory points, and victory points, VPs, represent the flavor of the crowd, meaning that the crowd is cheering for that team of champions, of course. The first player to score 5 victory points immediately wins the game. This can be done by either taking out enemy champions out of action and gaining 1 VP each time you do that, or by completing specific challenge cards by meeting the description and the condition met, and these award a number of victory points depending on the slot they're sitting, either 1 or 2. But this is something that is programmed, that you can see coming down the different challenge card queue next to the board. There are 3 cores of magic in the game, and this is the essence of the whole gameplay. Let me show you. All magic, and indeed all energy in Fabulosa, is actually tied to one of the 3 cores of magic. You have the destruction, which is the red one over here. You have the creation, which is the yellow one over here. And you have the manipulation, which is the blue one over here. Whenever a player uses any type of action, they exhaust, meaning flip over, 1 core of magic connecting to this specific action or card, and of course they must wait until the end of their turn until they are ready to be replenished and be used again in the next turn. One more concept I want to touch is actually the strength and the damage. Some cards have effects which will deal damage, like this one over here. You see it has the damage icon, which is this broken blood icon that you see over there. This is different from the strength icon, which is actually the strength of the attack of an action card, for example. Basically, what happens is while other cards will state strength, and they will refer to this icon, some of them will state damage and will refer to this icon. In any case, what is important to understand is that the attack of the strength is always reduced by the defense. So very simply, if this card was attacking with 2 strength, it will have to be you will have to remove out of the 2 strength attack the 2 defense, which will be 2 - 2, 0. But when you get to have direct damage, that means that this cannot be prevented from attack, and you'll have this amount of damage directly inflicted on any champion. Last but not least, we have towards and away. When an effect instructs a champion to move towards a game element, the moving champion must end its move with fewer hexes between the hex, the miniature itself, and the game element that is moving towards. Basically, if that's not possible, the champion will not be able to move at all. But when it says move towards, for example, a specific statue, you'll have to move as much as possible closest to that structure in order to fulfill that text. Similarly, when an effect instructs a champion to move away from a game element, the moving champion must end its move with more hexes between it and the game element it is moving away from than they were before starting their move. Also keep in mind that unless a card says otherwise, champions can only target enemy champions, and the area of effect, AoE, attacks are also including an enemy champion in the area of effect, then they fulfill the condition. Even if the ally is within the area of effect, then the attack can be inflicted. Basically, each player's hand is a hidden information. Remember, you have 5 cards in your hand, and it should not be shared with any other player unless a game effect instructs you to do so, to reveal your hand, for example. And each player's discard pile is open information. Players can ask to see their opponent's discard pile at any given time, and both sides of a champion cards are also open information, because remember, your champions start like that, but they can be upgraded by flipping them over when they defeat an enemy champion, and they also have an ability once they are upgraded and they are more powerful essentially in that way. It goes without saying that if a player is instructed to draw cards from an empty deck, then they shuffle the discard pile to form a new draw deck again. Okay, I promise you that the game is very simple yet very interesting through the choices of the players, so let's break down the game round. We have the player turn. Each round consists of 3 steps. First player's turn, second player's turn, and advanced challenge track. On a turn, players carry out exactly the following phases in order. So if it is the first player's turn, they will do exactly these 3 steps: scoreboard phase, activation phase, and upkeep phase. The scoreboard phase, the active player checks to see if they meet any of the conditions of those challenge cards, which of course they will be pushing forward and forward with each passing turn, so more of them will be revealed, and their value in victory points is going to change depending on the icons under their slot. So the active player checks to see if they meet the conditions to any of the active challenge cards, and if they do, they gain the appropriate number of victory points indicated at the bottom of the card, and then they discard the card directly to the discard pile over there. So if they're going to meet this card, they will gain 1 victory point and then discard it there. Then we have the activation phase. Players exhaust cores. Remember the cores that they have on their personal player board? They exhaust them by flipping them to their inactive side in order to play cards from their hand and activate their champions. And then there is the upkeep. The active player readies each of their cores. So all of the cores that they have been depleted, they are flipped again to their active side. They of course then discard their full remaining hand of cards if they haven't used any of the cards, and they draw 5 more new cards from their deck for the next round. Again, first player's turn, second player's turn, and then advance the challenge track. And when you are the active player, you do those 3 things: scoreboard phase, check for victory points; activation phase, exhaust cores and play cards to activate your champions, attack and control different positions; and then upkeep phase to refresh your hand and your cores respectively. Now let's see one of those phases, each of those phases, with a bit of more detail. First of all, we said when you're the active player, you go through your scoreboard phase. During your scoreboard phase, the active player checks if they currently meet the scoring conditions of any active challenges. Challenges are the key to victory. Completing a challenge and earning the respective victory points is the main source of VP tokens that the player needs in order to win the game. The value in VP tokens is equal to the position of the card, and at any given time it shows that this card, if fulfilled, it will award at the scoreboard phase of the active player 1 victory point. This one will award 2, 2, 1, back to 1, and then it will be discarded while moving down the card queue. So what you do there, you check what conditions you fulfill or you have positioned yourself in order to fulfill during your scoreboard phase. Discard any scored challenges, and because challenges are scored at the beginning of a player's turn, the opponent will always have a turn to try and stop them from scoring. Of course, challenges cannot be scored during the first round. So let's focus on this challenge, for example. Control the destruction area. This is a red area. If a player is controlling during their scoreboard phase this destruction area, they will immediately discard this card and gain 2 victory points, actually 2 out of the 5 that they need to win the game. So be careful not to miss out opportunities or to prevent your opponent from doing the same. So very simple idea, just check what you fulfill from these challenges. If that was the case, control one of the cards, control the destruction area. The destruction areas are all the red hexes around this destruction statue, the destruction wizard. That means that if, for example, you control this area and you simply control the area by having more champions from your opponent, in this case the orange team has 1 and the purple team has 0, then they do fulfill this condition and they will gain victory points according to the slot of the challenge card. In this case, no one controls the destruction area, but in this case, again, the orange player controls the destruction area, 2 versus 1. So be aware of these opportunities for sure. The second and most juicy phase in a player's turn, when they're the active player, is the activation phase. During a turn, players may activate champions by playing action cards that belong to that champion or by using standard actions that are depicted on their player board, and we'll see in a moment. Players may play cards in any combination as frequently as they like, as long as they have the matching core to expend in order to play the respective card that belongs to that core of magic. Keep in mind that most action cards allow champions to move and resolve an attack or a skill that is explained on the card's text box, and champions may be activated more than once per turn as long as the appropriate core can be exhausted to pay for it. An action card must be completely resolved before the same player may play another card. And of course, most of the times you only have so many actions that you can do because you have 3 cores, and in order to play a card matching that color, you need to flip one of those cards. For example, in order to play this specific card from Goldar, I need to have available a blue core of magic so that I can spend it and then perform what the card allows me to do. Similarly, I can spend a core in order to do one of those actions. For example, I can do the move 1 and deal 1 damage to an adjacent enemy, which is allowed by this basic standard action. So in some cases you'll see that you'll need more actions to do, but you only have 3 each turn, so you need to use them wisely. I believe that in some cases you would be able to replenish within play from the combination of specific cards some of the cores, and then you'll be able to play it a second time as long as you have cards to match those core of magic, or you do one of the basic standard actions. Now let's examine the movement. Champions may move up to the number of hexes indicated by the movement value of an action card, and they do not have to move the full distance or move at all if they choose to stay in their position. Hexes containing statues or enemies are blocked, and champions cannot normally move through or end their movement in them, and champions may move through each other but not end on hexes containing allies. So I can pass through one of my allies from my own team, but I cannot end my movement on the same hex. Each hex can contain at most 1 unit, 1 mini, when movement has been fulfilled. But in any case, at no moment you can pass through one of your enemies enemy champion miniatures. So let's see how the movement works. Champions can move into hexes containing trapped hexes, and they may do it freely because they may be awarded victory points, but be aware that most of the times you suffer the penalty of either damage or stun or different conditions that you gain if you move into one of those traps, because they immediately activate when one opens a trap. Also, keep in mind that this will usually result in triggering the effect, and if a champion has a movement bonus, it is applied to each action card and standard action used to activate them, but only if the action card has a printed movement value. Speaking of that, here is my hand. I have the control of these 3 heroes from this side of the board. For example, I can expend 1 yellow core of magic. In order to play 1 yellow card, it requires a yellow core of magic. We'll explain the anatomy of the card later on. And this gives me 2 movement points. So I can move 1, 2, or even 0. And it is a movement that is granted by the action card itself. So, for example, Goldar here, by expending this core and playing this card, I can move up to 2. So 1, 2, and I can trigger, for example, this trap whenever I sit here. Maybe I don't want to do it, but in any case, I can even just move once and stay over there in order to maybe use some different area effects that I want to, or positioning that I want to take advantage down the road. So movement always is performed if it is printed on the action card, as long as you want to move the mini indeed. So here's the action card anatomy. First of all, we can see that we have different type of cards, and you can see that first of all you see the champion icon on the top left of the card. So for example, this is a card that is originating from this champion, from Goldar, and you can see that it matches the symbol. So the symbol of the champion is located at the top left corner of the action card itself. And it's also the same whether it's an attack card or a skill card. For reaction cards, we don't have symbols, as we'll explain later on. Then we have the action type. That has to do with the icon. This icon, the black icon, is the icon of the attack card. This icon, the gear black icon, is the icon of the skill, and the black shield icon is the icon of the reaction. Again, you see that you'll never find a symbol of a hero on the reaction card, even though this corresponds to specifically, it's originating from this hero's deck, from Akhet, but it doesn't have an icon for the hero because it can be played as a reaction to any of the champions that they can use the effect, not only to the specific. But this attack can only be performed by Goldar, and this reaction also by Goldar, because it's linked with the specific champion. Then we have here the name of the card, Plunder, Set Sail, or From the Ashes, which is the name of the action card respectively. We have the Core of Magic on the top right, as I have indicated before. In order to play this card, it will affect Goldar, but I will need to be able to have available one specific type of Core Magic yellow in order to be able to flip it and play the card. Otherwise, I won't be able to play the card if it's already been exhausted. And here it's a blue core, and here is a red core, for example. Also, you have the action movement. Some of the cards, like this one, this attack card or this action skill card, has the boot, the green boot, which means that on top of the rest we can move up to this number of hexes with our specific champion. We have the action range. Let me find a card with range to show you. For example, the range is actually below the movement. That's here or here for this attack. This has a range of between 2 and 3. So out of your own hex, you count 2 or 3 hexes, and within that range you can perform this specific attack. Of course, other cards have different type of attacks, and we'll come back to that to a moment. This is for adjacent attack, or you can have direct or indirect shots, etc. But in any case, below the movement you can find the range icon, which is a minimum and a max in some of the cases. Then you have the action strength. If it is an attack, you see it has the strength, so this attacks with a strength of 2. Then you also have the action effect, which is included in here. This is an effect, this is a skill card, and it describes the effect itself. Then you have the defense modifier. Some cards here as a reaction, again let me show you some, they can provide you a defense modifier like this one. So when they're played, they're modifying the attack. So from this value we will subtract the amount of defense if that such a reaction card is played. Also the defense of the hero card, champion card itself. Then you have, of course, the flavor text that you can find in the various cards, like this one, Death is not a step in the Kemarans, that the Kemarans took lightly, Akhet least of all, so it has some fluff. Then you have the card number, and you can easily see from the card number the first letters indicate to which hero champion this card belongs to, and then you have the name of the illustrator who is responsible, or she is responsible, for this beautiful art. So when an effect requires a player to place a champion, it is removed from the current hex and placed in the new location. This is not considered a movement. This has to do with a different text. So let's talk about the attacks. There is some symbols on the cards that you can see either here. This is a pre-attack symbol, but you can also find some cards that have the post-attack symbol. Actually, this is a post-attack because it has an arrow pointing to the right, and there is a pre-attack which has an arrow pointing to the left. Okay, there it is. This is a pre-attack text, and this is a post-attack. So you jump 3 and then you push. So you jump 3 before your attack, and then you do your attack, and then you perform the after attack. You push 1. Okay, so it's very simple. Generally, pre-attack symbols like this one, the top, are abilities and effects that take place at the attack card when the attack card is played, even though you decide not to perform an attack. You just play the card for movement purposes. If a card instructs a player to resolve this, they must be fully resolved before moving to the next step of the attack. And the key difference between the pre-attack and the post-attack, again, pre-attack and post-attack symbol. The main difference is that, of course, the pre-attack ability can be performed, and then the attack being not performed, you choose not to attack. But if you want to perform the post-attack, in this case push 1, you need to do the attack itself and then do the post-attack text as indicated. Every action card with the attack icon, like this one over here, this is an attack icon, this is a skill icon, don't confuse them, this is the gear skill icon, this is the attack icon, the black one. So every action card with the attack icon in the upper left corner can be used to resolve an attack. And the steps are very simple. First, you play the card. Let's say I played this card in order to perform an attack with Goldar over here by expending the correct core of magic, in this case, yellow. You use as much of the card's movement as you choose, so I can move up to 2 or even 0 if I choose not to move at all. Then you resolve any pre-attack abilities, if there are any. In this card there are none. You choose if then you choose if you will use the attack. You say yes, I perform the attack to your opponent, and by doing so you will continue by declaring the target or the targets if you have an area of effect. So you say I attack with Goldar, this champion over here, and I proceed to the attack. Then the opponent chooses to play reactions from their hand if they have any that they can offer to their defense. Then the target defense value is subtracted from the current strength. So 2 minus any reactions if played with defense minus the strength of your opponent. So if the opponent had 0 in the shield, 2 minus 0, 2. I will perform 2 damage. But if it had, for example, 1, it will be 2 from my strength minus 1. Let's say we don't have any additional modifiers from reaction cards. 2 minus 1, 1. So I will deal 1 damage to the respective champion. And I will do so by taking one of those damage tokens or more, equal to the amount of damage I dealt, and place it on the champion card of the target that was that received the result of my attack. Then, after I subtract the defense value from the current strength of the attack, we resolve the attack itself. First, we resolve any post-attack abilities from reactions played from the opponent who is defending. Then we resolve any post-attack abilities from our own card. And then we conclude the attack step. Very, very simple, because some cards don't even have pre-attack or post-attack, and in that case you simply perform the attack by subtracting the defense from the attack value as I indicated clearly. In regards to declaring targets, you need to check the range and targeting icons to determine which targeting rules apply for the attack, and some attacks have a minimum range, and any enemy closer than that range is not eligible target. So we have to play a bit of careful. We have to pay a bit of careful considerations on the range itself. Let me show you some examples. Okay, so let's see some basic examples. We have first of all the melee attack, which has this symbol, the melee symbol. You see, this is the white hex, the hex where your champion is located, and directly adjacent it should be the target of the attack. So for example, if this is Goldar, let's say over here, and we have an enemy, this can be applied because from here it attacks adjacently, so either there, or there, or there, wherever. I can play this card and I'm within range, so that's a good example. Okay, next we can have, for example, this is a melee attack and always targets a single adjacent enemy. Next we have the indirect shot, which is this icon over here with a curve arrow. So this is an indirect shot. So for example, let's say again, moving a bit there. So this is one of the heroes with the ability of the indirect shot. As you can see, it has a range of 2 to 3. An indirect shot targets a single enemy and the targeting value shows the maximum range of the actions. When one figure is specified in the targeting value within that range, then it can suffer the effect of the attack. And when two figures are indicated, the first specifies the minimum and the second the maximum range of the action. So for example, if it was only one figure, just 3, means it can go all the way, it can go to 3. But if it has from 2 to 3, it cannot target adjacent areas. So you cannot use this ranged indirect shot to attack when someone is adjacently located next to you, but it can be used here because it's at least 2, so boom, 2, or 3, boom, because it's within range. And the same applies all around the center of this attack. It's very, very powerful, but not good up close. Then the next is the direct shot that you can see here. It has again a straight arrow from left to right, and again has a range. This direct shot works like the indirect shot with some extra restrictions. Direct shots may only target enemies on hexes in the same row of hexes as the attacking champion, and additionally direct shots cannot target champions if there are any statues or other champions, enemy or allies between them and the target that they want to attack. So for example, here I can do a direct shot, but I need to have free space between me and the target, and it's within range, so 2 to 3, so I can target 2 from here there or from here there, but needs to be free, because if I was like that, I cannot attack because there is an ally. Keep in mind that the indirect shot that I showed you before, it goes without those restrictions, so it goes on top and landing on the target itself. Then the last type of range is the area of effect, as you can see here, which has this icon. So for example, if that's the case, supposedly we have 2 enemies located here. Let's say for the benefit of the example, one is here and one is there, here and there. And here is our target, our hero, which applies the area of effect as indicated on the icon there. Simply an area of effect, or AoE for short, attack affects all champions in the yellow marked hexes shown on the targeting icon of the action card, including allies. So you need to be careful because you can apply a damage of an attack with 2 strength minus their defense for both that and that miniature, but if for some reason you had an ally in this area of effect, it will target also your ally, so you need to be very careful when you use those cards respectively. After targets are declared, the controller of the enemy target champion may play 1 reaction card on any of their champion targeted. So for example, if that was the case, after I declare the attack, the defender, the purple player, can play 1 reaction on any of their targeted champions with my attack. The target's defense value is subtracted, as I told you before, from the current strength value. So all champions have a defense value. Even if it is 0, it's considered to be still defense for card effect purposes. And during this step, the current defense value of the defender is subtracted from the current strength value of the attack. Remember to include any modifiers to strength and defense values in this step from any cards or abilities that you may have. For example, if you have upgraded, level up your champion and flip their card, and then the sum of the total subtraction is the amount of damage that will pass on the champion. How do you resolve an attack damage? Very simple. You just take the card, on your card of your hero, that champion that took the damage. If they took, for example, 3 damage or 4, you're going to take 3 plus 1, 4, and keep those tokens on top of their card so that you indicate that they have 4 damage received out of the 7 they can take before they are removed from the round, not from play, from the round, because they can be respawned. Now this is how you resolve the attack in general. The same goes with skills. So you remember some of the cards, action cards, instead of the attack icon, they have, it's not none here, let me check my hand, there you have it, they have the skill icon, which is this. So for the skill icon, exactly the same sequence applies. Most champions have 1 or more skill cards denoted by the skill icon on the upper left corner of the card, and some skills affect specific targets and have targeting icons like attacks, for example. So what you do, very simple, first you use as much of the card's movement as possible, because they also have movement, some of those cards. Then you choose if you want to proceed with that skill. So if you choose not to, you just throw it away, discard it, and you just perform the movement portion from the card. If you decide to use it, then you declare the target if necessary, and you resolve the text box on the skill card itself. For example, this one says return 1 red core card from your discard pile to your hand. So you can use it potentially again, or maybe spend an action to plan it and put it on the top of your draw deck for next round. Okay? Aket's attacks gain +1 strength until the end of the turn. So it will be good to use him again for attack, because he will get +1 strength on the total of any cards that they play. So for example, but they have to be with this specific champion. So if they play this, he has an attack of 2 +1 from that skill card, it will become 3. That happens. That is the case for the remaining of the round. So again, very important, defense values do not help against effects that deal direct damage. It's different, the strength that is subtracted, defense is subtracted from the strength, and the result is the damage you take, and some cards deal direct damage. Those you cannot defend, you just take the damage tokens immediately. Now, let's move to the standard actions. In addition to using their hand of action cards, players may also activate when they choose all champions using the standard actions shown on the player dashboard. These are the actions described here. Again, they're required to spend 1 core magic to do a specific standard action. For example, a standard action may be used once per activation phase, and you can spend a manipulation blue core to perform the top action, which is to move 1 and plan 1. Plan 1 means that from my hand, specifically because I want to keep this card because it's very valuable for my next attack, I take it and I put it on top of my draw deck on the left, so I can make sure that I'm going to draw it on the next round because I need it there. Then you can also have the next case, you can spend, for example, 1 yellow core in order to perform the second, which is simply move 1 and heal 1. So when you heal 1, simply you remove 1 damage token from your hero card. So if that hero, and you can do these standard actions for any of your heroes. So if I want to spend this yellow to do move 1, I can move whoever hero champion I choose from my board, and then remove 1 damage from the chosen hero. Then I can also spend a distraction core, the red one, in order to move 1 and deal 1 damage to an adjacent enemy. This damage, like all the damage, is direct and it ignores defense. Finally, I can spend whatever core I want, blue, red or yellow, doesn't matter which one I choose, depending on my strategy, and then I can perform a move of 2, so I can position my champions better and combine it with additional cards in order to do some maximum damage. So this is how you use the standard actions from your player dashboard. Finally, we have the reactions. Remember, reactions are the cards which have this black shield on the top or left corner of the card, and also they do not possess an icon. They don't show an icon for the champion. They can be played on behalf of any champion you choose. So, and during an opponent's turn, players can react to their opponent attacks by playing reaction cards, and reactions may only be played during the opponent's turn and only when at least one of your player champions are being targeted by an opponent from an attack action. Reaction cards are played by players not champions, so reactions can target any player's champion's choice, not just the champion whose card is being played, so that's why they don't have an icon. Reactions can never be used to react to a skill action, only to attack actions, and the player can play more than one reaction card per action, per attack action, even if more than one champion is targeted by the attack. When playing a reaction during an area of effect attack, a player must choose which of their champions will be targeted by the reaction, and when the reaction card causes effects like push or pull or deal damage, the target of the reaction card is a champion causing that effect. The target of the effect itself is noted on the reaction card, and some reactions may cause an enemy to be taken completely out of action. When this happens, the champion who played the reaction card will of course level up like usual and gain 1 victory point like usual as well. So there you have it. We explained scoreboard phase, we explained action phase, and now we finalize with the upkeep phase, which is the last part of the player's turn. During the upkeep phase, players ready their cores, so they flip any expend cores back to their available side, so they have all cores available for their next turn. That means that a player will always have all the cores available to play reactions against their opponent actions. And it's important to note that any exhausted cores will not be available on the player's next turn. So if you expend a lot of cores during defense when you're not the active player to play reaction cards, that means that when you start your round activation, you will not have that many available cores for performing other actions, attacks yourself. Then they discard any cards that they were remaining in their hand, and they draw a full fresh hand of 5 cards from their deck. If at any point their deck is depleted, they reshuffle it and form a new deck with a discard pile. Then we advance the challenge track. At the end of each game round, after all players have taken a turn, all challenge cards move 1 space to the right, and a new challenge card is drawn. This is placed in the cannot be scored space, and challenges moving right from the rightmost space are discarded. They are moved to the discard pile. If at any point your challenge card deck empties, shuffle the discard pile and form a new challenge deck. So if no one has claimed any challenge card at this round, what I would do is, first of all, I would discard the last challenge. I would move all of them 1 slot, so you see that their value may change, so they may become more valuable because they worth now 2 victory points, some of them, and the last ones of course will worth less. And then a new challenge card will be drawn and position in the cannot be scored phase, but it will also move on the next round to the right. Now you see that there are many conditions that you need to monitor carefully, because 2 or 1 out of 5 victory points that you need in order to win the game, they should not be neglected with. Out of action. A champion is taken out of action as soon as they suffered an amount of damage equal to or greater than the hit point value that is printed on their champion card. For example, if this hero takes 3 plus 3, 6 plus 3, 9 or more damage points, this is equal or more than their 9 health value, that means that they are taken out of action. If during their activation a champion takes an enemy out of action, the attacking champion player gains 1 victory point. So this is the second source of victory points. You're trying to take out your opponents, because each mini you take out from the round is awarding you 1 victory point and is allowing you to level up. The out of action champion is teleported by the wizards out of harm's way, and it's healed, and all damage is removed from the champion, and if they had leveled up, they flip their champion back to the normal side, the basic side. They're out of action for the remaining of the round, and they are placed on the team's player's gate until they're activated on the next round by spending an action card to first move into the arena and then continue playing. While champions are on the gate, they cannot be affected by card effects, can never be targeted by actions or attacks, and cannot target themselves champions on the hex grid. in order to activate one of out of action champion, you first have to move them with movement on the board. Speaking of leveling up. When an enemy is taken out of action, the champion currently being activated will level up and will flip its card. So if, for example, Chu Xiao took out one of the opponent minis in this round, they will flip their card to their level up side and they will gain the ability printed on the bottom of the card. Adjacent enemies suffer -1 defense as well. So this is a level up side of the champion, has an ability. It awards, since they level, taking out an opponent's mini gives you 1 victory point and also gives you the ability to flip your card, leveling up and being more powerful. The champion uses the stats and effects of the level up side until they are taken out of action, and if the champion was already level up before the knocked out, then nothing happens. Note that the level up effects are always active. They are abilities that they give you more power in the arena. The last thing I want to mention are the traps. Some hexes, as you can see here, contain trap tokens. Traps are always placed face down, and a trap will trigger as soon as a champion enters the hex in which it was placed. It doesn't matter if the champion deliberately moved there or was pushed or pulled or otherwise displaced on that hex, the player controlling the champion that activated the trap flips the trap token and applies the effect to the champion. The champion may then complete any remaining movement they have available unless they prevent it from the trap itself. There should always be 4 trap tokens on the map. As soon as a trap is activated and triggered and the effects applied, the player whose champion was triggered the trap token takes a new trap token from the pile and has to place it on one of the trap icons on the board so that there are always 4 trap tokens on the arena at any point. The trap effects are simple. You can either have 1, 2 or 3 direct damage that you suffer, or you can have, for example, the champion being rooted, that means they lose the remaining of their movement point, or the champion being stunned, that means they have to discard one of their cards from their hand and they have less options for the remaining of the round respectively. Now, there are a few minor keywords, I would say, that they are very simple to apply. They are collected at the last 2 pages of the rulebook. Keywords like, for example, fear, dash, force, jump, poison, or whatever, that they are very easy to follow. So I'm not going to go into the details. You can just refer quickly to this at the end of the rulebook and apply the effect. They are meant in a way that they do not bog down the game with additional unnecessary rules that make it complicated. Simply, you just may lose your remaining of your movement, lose 1 card, or just display the way that you push or pull someone, and simple things that you expect to work naturally, and they do. And that's all the rules of the basic game. Of course, it needs to be mentioned that you can also have a 4-player variant with a Super Team Tornado, where 2 teams play against each other. Each of the team consists of 2 teammates, and each teammate controls 2 heroes champions for themselves. So 2 myself, 2, and the opponent team another 2 and 2. So it's 4 versus 4, and each teammate controls 2 out of the 4 of the collectively 4 of their team. So essentially it's 4 versus 4. It's a bloodshed. Of course, you can understand that it's going to be a complete havoc, and that will be very nice as well. And there are a few minor changes in that are described in the back of the rulebook about a few minor things about the 4-player variant. Now, that's all there is in Super Fantasy Brawl. Just to finalize, the simple, straightforward and fun, enjoyable system that brings collision between 2 parties with 3 champions on each side, and lots of fun driven by card play. So there you have it. These are all the rules on how you play Super Fantasy Brawl from Mythic Games. So there you have it. These are the rules of the game. I was again very scholastic and very detailed in explaining everything, so that you can ignore the rulebook and directly learn the game from this video, so you know everything you need to know about the game. Now, that being said, again, coming back to the experience I had from the game, I really believe this is a very, very clean, neat and elegant system, that it shows that it has been developed, designed and refined and worked a lot in order to yield such a great experience. I really like the fact that you can throw a mix of different champions on the board. They don't have to belong to a specific faction, so I can take whatever mix of 3 champions I want. I like the fact that you can do it both casually for a fast play. I don't want to have a lot of rules about how I draft it, but I can do it with a competitive drafting mode, especially if you're playing in a tournament or whatever. My experience with the game was a casual, fun game. I didn't use the game in any champion, I didn't come into any tournament, I didn't use it on any rated event. I just enjoyed it simply with my friends, playing the game and confronting each other with our team of 3 champions. Okay, so the experience was tremendous. We had a blast. I think that the game is very, very fun, and that's what such a game should be. They should be fun. It's very easy to teach to someone. So usually some of those type of games, they have so many rules that you cannot say, okay, I call a friend, he or she comes over, and within a couple of minutes I teach the game, and then we start and we play and we are equals. This is one of those games that again, simplistically laid out rules that make sense thematically, but a very, very innovative and clever and genius card play that allows to play a couple of cards on your hand, on your turn, expend cores of magic, but mix everything, use different heroes each time, position them correctly, and the scoring of this game is tremendous, because usually you gain points by knocking out your opponents. Here you also gain points from the challenge cards, and actually you may gain more sometimes from the challenge cards, because if you trigger them at the correct timing, then they can give you 2 out of 5. You need only 5, so a game lasts only, I don't know, 30 minutes or 40 minutes top. Usually it's 20 to 30, and then you can go back and try different teams, or play again with the same team champions, and take a rematch, etc. So overall, tremendous experience, very, very good value for money. It's a game that looks gorgeous on the table. Obviously, it could have been a much cheaper production, but there you have it. This is Mythic Games, so they never go cheap or short of anything. Their games are really, really well done in terms of production. They have tremendous table presence, I would say, and aesthetics, and this is no exception to that. But the scope of the game is different from the one we've used before. This game that doesn't take too long to play. You play fast games between each other, and you need to play again and again, and most of the times you're going to play back-to-back additional sessions because you want to enjoy it more. And the replayability out of all the combination of different champions, the clever card play, plus the clever scoring of those challenge cards depending on specific location, corresponding to the statues, to controlling specific areas or whatever on the board, gives you a lot of flexibility in gaining victory points from different sources. So there you have it, extremely fun, highly suggested. I'm really putting out my best experience so far from the game. I had a blast playing it. I love the way the minis look. I wish I would be able to paint them so that I can create some little marvels from these gorgeous minis. They're very beautiful. But what is most important, this is a game that, okay, looks gorgeous. I didn't expect anything less from Mythic Games. This one really plays like a dream. It's a fantastic system. You better check it out. For sure, you can check it out on Board Game Arena as a beta. You can try it for a session and take it for a spin and see if it's a game for you. But be prepared that you're going to have a blast and you're going to love this game, most probably the same like myself. So there you have it. This is Super Fantasy Brawl from Mythic Games.